There are officially over 1,000 Pokémon in the Pokémon franchise, but there are many more lost Pokémon that never became the real thing. Over the years, and especially in more recent times, there have been things that have been in actual Pokémon games that have sparked fans' imaginations and had them thinking that it was a sign of a new Pokémon or Pokémon form that would be coming in a future game, only for it to never amount to anything at all. While never becoming the real thing, these are all still a super interesting part of the history of Pokémon and the Pokémon community, and all of the rumors and speculation that happen along the way. So I thought it would be fun to recount the stories of some of these would-be Pokémon in today's video. So let's take a trip down memory lane and take a look at 7 lost Pokémon that never became the real thing. Okay, so this first one is a pretty classic example of what I'm talking about here, and that would be Galerion Hoothoot. During the pre-release period of Sword and Shield, Galerion forms had just been confirmed and the hype for the games was starting to build. As we started getting more and more trailers for the games, a glimpse of this image of a Hoothoot could briefly be seen in the background of one of the trailers. Well, as you can expect, people noticed this and immediately started speculating about it potentially being a Galerion Hoothoot. The idea actually caught on quite significantly amongst the community, as there were videos made, fan art drawn of what it could look like, and even fake leaks were made claiming that it was indeed the real thing, and many expected it to be legit. However, this ultimately amounted to nothing more than being the logo for one of the many Galerion businesses that feature in the games, with this logo representing a bookstore. While admittedly the Hoothoot in the logo does look a bit different to regular Hoothoot, which is what caught everyone's attention in the first place, this is definitely an example of fans getting just a little too swept up in the pre-release hype. But that's also part of what makes Pokemon so fun, so I can't blame anyone too much. This next one also comes from Sword and Shield, and it is one that pretty much the whole community, for the most part anyway, seemed to believe that it was a sign of a new Pokemon that we were going to be getting. But sadly, we were all just a bunch of fools. When the DLC for Sword and Shield was announced and we were getting details about the Isle of Armor, Clara was introduced as one of the characters that would be appearing in this half of the DLC. As people began to discuss and analyze those first DLC trailers, many began to notice that Clara's bow in her hair resembled a Dustox, except it was not your typical Dustox colors. Everyone immediately ran with this and took it as a sign that we were going to be getting Galerion Dustox in the DLC, since we already got confirmation that we were going to get new Galerion forms with the reveal of Galarian Slowpoke, Slowbro, and Slowking. The usual antics ensued there afterwards, but of course, the fate was the same as Galerion Hoothoot. It was just another case of Pokemon branding being present for the sake of world building, and not any kind of actual hint. For what it's worth, Pokemon Sword and Shield were also the first games to really give us a heavy presence of this kind of Pokemon-themed branding and graphic design within the game's world, outside of just your typical Pokeball-themed stuff that we've become accustomed to. So at the time, it was pretty new to the fanbase, and as a result, it definitely fooled a lot of people. This Pokemon-based branding, while making all the sense in the world to see in a Pokemon game, would continue to drum up even more speculation and belief, even past Pokemon Sword and Shield, that new Pokemon were on the way. In Pokémon Scarlet and Violet, a special two-part trailer was made for the reveal of Iono and her Bellabolt, and Iono immediately made an impression on everyone. Not only because her design is great, not only because she's an influencer, but because of her hair clips. That's right. Female hair accessories literally got us 2 generations in a row. We should probably be pretty ashamed of ourselves. Iono's hair clips are Magnemite themed, as you can clearly see, but just like the other examples we've already talked about, the depiction of Magnemite here looked a little different to how Magnemite actually looks, which is all that Pokemon fans needed to immediately start believing that Paldean Magnemite was definitely going to be a thing, especially because Iono is an electric-type gym leader. To our credit though, Magnemite is actually an excellent candidate for a regional variant, as number 1, it's a Kanto Pokemon and is therefore prone to special treatment like this, and is also one of the few Kanto Pokemon at this point who hasn't received a special form of any kind, like a variant, Mega, G-Max form, etc. So this, combined with seeing a differently colored Magnemite, definitely seemed to add up in a lot of people's minds that this could actually be a possibility. And then when you throw pre-release hype into the mix along with that, it just made it easy for people to convince themselves that this was going to happen. However, we technically weren't actually that far off, as the Magnemite family did actually get a special form in these games. It was just in the form of a Paradox Pokemon with Sandy Shocks instead of a regional variant Magnemite. While this kind of trickery has extended into Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, however, what we have covered so far wasn't even the end of what we saw in Sword and Shield either. And also, just to reiterate really quick, I don't just bring these up because they're simply present in the games. These actually received a significant amount of attention and speculation from fans, as well as a significant amount of belief that they could be the real thing, which is what makes them noteworthy. With that said though, the next lost Pokemon we have to discuss is Galerion Clink. In the same fashion as all these others, a unique Clink design, different from the standard Univin version, was seen in pre-release material for Sword and Shield, specifically on the clothes of Team Yell. Given its different appearance and Team Yell's focus on Dark-type Pokemon, it was thought that Galerion Clink could be one of Team Yell's signature Pokemon, and that it would be Dark Steel-type as a result. Ultimately, however, Team Yell's signature Pokemon ended up being another Galarian form, which is of course Galarian Zigzagoon and Linoon, and their new evolution Obstagoon, which is also the signature Pokemon of Team Yell's leader, Piers. So even though this is yet another Pokemon that didn't end up happening, I feel like I want to add as a little bit of food for thought that I feel like it could be possible, given that these Pokemon do have different appearances like regional variants do, that at least some of them that are appearing as clothing and branding and all types of other stuff could possibly be scrapped regional variants that didn't quite make the cut to become a real actual Pokemon, but their designs were able to be repurposed onto clothes and into bows and hair clips and logos and stuff like that to fill out the rest of these games' worlds. That is just speculation in and of itself as well, so take it for what it's worth, but personally, if it came out that that was actually the case, I don't think I would actually be too surprised. So again, it's just something to think about. Now here is a really interesting one. For me, I never bought into the idea of this myself, partly because of all of the other stuff that came before it that we just talked about, but as a whole, the community seemed very convinced that this could mean something. In Pokemon Legends Arceus, as you are exploring your home base of Jubilife Village, you'll notice that some of the residents' houses have a carving or a figure that is meant to resemble Magikarp inside of their homes. However, in one of the houses in the village, this same figure is present, but it is distinctly different to the Magikarp figures from the other houses, and yet it still seems to resemble Magikarp overall. Many people thought at the time of Legends' release that this could definitely be evidence of a regional variant Magikarp, or a new Pokemon, that could be coming soon, and possibly was a hint at the Gen 9 Pokemon games, since Scarlet and Violet had yet to be revealed at that time. Of course, nothing ever ended up coming of this, and at least to this point, has not proved to be representing a new Pokemon or form of Magikarp of any kind. However, there is definitely some logic to this too. There's the resemblance to Magikarp that I mentioned, as well as it strangely taking the place of the standard Magikarp figure in this one particular house. There was also the fact that when Legends came out, we were right on the cusp of Gen 9's reveal, and Game Freak loved to hint at their future games, so people were already looking for this kind of stuff while they were playing anyway, and it seemed like it could be the real deal when people first started to find it. To me, though, it just was never that convincing despite all of this evidence, because personally, I feel like this just kinda looks like a generic depiction of a fish that's not meant to resemble anything in particular. I get that this is Pokemon, so it makes sense that this should be a Pokemon, and who knows, maybe it was at some time, but that was just the vibe that it gave to me personally, and at least to this point, it seems like that might be what it is after all. Okay, so our next two are slight exceptions compared to what we've seen to this point, for various reasons which I will cover as we go along. This first one, though, is none other than Dawn form Lycanroc. This one is an exception on this list because nothing for it really ever appeared physically in-game like it did for the other ones we've talked about. But the possibility of a Dawn form Lycanroc coming to the games was a huge point of discussion for the Alola games once Dusk form Lycanroc was officially revealed, and many were convinced that it was going to happen. And while it didn't have a design or a piece of clothing to represent it like all of these other ones did, it did have the three other forms of Lycanroc that quite literally carved out a spot for it to exist. Or at least that's what everyone thought. First, we got the Midday and Midnight forms, and then after that, we got the Dusk form. So obviously, they're eventually going to reveal a Dawn form, cause they wouldn't possibly leave that out, right? Well, yeah, they actually would. I do feel like that they might as well have made this an actual thing, because it could have been cool, it wouldn't have really thrown anything out of whack, it would have generated a lot of hype, and as we mentioned, the opportunity was there for it. Sadly, however, Game Freak sometimes just marches to the beat of their own drum, and so Dawn form Lycanroc will unfortunately just have to remain a cool figment of our imaginations. Alright, so unlike Dawn Lycanroc, this next one is actually present within the games. However, it's not actually out yet, so I can't technically say that it's not the real thing. However, I've decided to include it in this video anyway, because it does very much seem like it'll be that way, and it's also very similar to the other Pokemon we've talked about in this video to this point. In the second trailer for the Scarlet and Violet DLC, within the teal mask portion of the trailer, we see a shot of the festival that is going on in Kitakami, and of one of the vendors' booths at the festival that has an image of a Snover on it that once again appears a bit different to the Snover that we currently know. While it's still a brand new thing, I have already seen discussion and fan art myself about whether this could be a new Snover form, and what it would look like if it is. And like I said, the DLC isn't even out yet, so I can't say for certain that this is not a thing, but given the track record that we've just gone through with stuff like this, I feel like I can pretty confidently say that this is just some Pokemon graphic design once again, and we are not going to get a Dayan Snover in the DLC. However, if gambling was allowed in the Pokemon games and I was a betting man, I would definitely say that it's only a matter of time before this becomes a lost Pokemon too. And there you have it. If you enjoyed this video, be sure to leave a like, subscribe, and comment down below with your thoughts. If you'd like to support the channel more, I also make Pokemon remixes, in case you didn't know, and you can listen to them on Spotify, Apple Music, or wherever you get your music. It directly supports the production of videos right back here on YouTube, so if you like what you see here, consider supporting the channel by streaming my music too. It would be greatly appreciated. With that said, I'll be back very soon with another video, and until then, as always, thank you guys so much for watching this one. I really appreciate it, and I will smell you guys later.